Knapp. We're the co-chairs of the Professional Speaker Series. Thanks for coming to our first event. And with us, we have Ketchum PR.
So we're very excited to have these four professionals with us today. So we have Laura, who is the Senior Vice President at Ketchum. We have Maura, who is the Senior Account Executive, working on the Kimberly-Clark brand. We have Patrick, who works in Market Research and Analytics. And we have Jacqueline, who is a Senior Consultant for Ketchum. So they're going to be kind of doing a pretty candid panel discussion. And then they're going to open it up for some Q&A. And at the end, there will be opportunities for you guys to meet them and network. They really want to meet you guys. So we're very excited. Give us a round of applause.
Thank you very much. I'm going to stand up. I'm in business development, can't you tell? It's really great to be here today. I've been with Ketchum for 10 years, choking when I say that, but I've been here for 10 years with Ketchum, always in new business, in a new business role, and I'm currently in a growth and marketing role for two of our largest specialty businesses, the ones that Patrick and Jack work in, research and analytics, and our change management employee engagement group. So my job is things like this. My job is to cultivate leads. My job is to fulfill bid opportunities to market the services of our firm. I love it very much. I've been in public relations since I went to another journalism school, the University of Missouri. Go Tigers. So I did go to journalism school, and I did work. I worked on both the client side and the agency side, both small and large agencies. I brought a little prop today, the Northwestern Alumni Magazine, with the article about Mad Men, the party being over. My husband is a Kellogg alum. Both my parents are Northwestern alums, and my grandmother went to Northwestern. So there's been a lot of Northwestern in our family, and it is on my bucket list to maybe take the certificate program here at some point. But for now, I'm funding college tuition in another institution, so for our family. But it's great to be here today. I wanted to have my colleagues introduce themselves. Quickly, we've provided, there's no PowerPoint. We're going to talk. There's a concept. And we've provided one handout, which is an infographic on our firm, and I'll pull out a few highlights about that in a minute. Maura?
Okay, hi, well, thank you for having us here today. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Maura Comerford. I'm a senior account executive in the brand practice at Ketchum, and I work on mainly Kimberly-Clark accounts, so Cotton Now toilet paper and Kleenex, all those good paper products. And I also work on Best Buy. I run the Midwest news engine, so that's strictly media relations. But with my work on Cotton Now and Kleenex, I have a day-to-day account role, and I work pretty closely with some other agencies as part of a larger integrated marketing team. So I'll speak a little bit about that today too, and I think that'll be helpful for you guys to get some insight into that. So thanks for having us.
Patrick O'Donnell. I am with Ketchum Global Research and Analytics, which is Ketchum's research group. We provide research and analytics support for the entire agency, and we're a global team, so we have people on our team spread throughout the globe and the U.S. I've been with Ketchum for 7 years. I spent 2 years in our New York office where I started, and I've been in Chicago for 5. And like, I guess all of y'all, I also have my master's degree from Florida State and IMC as well. So I know what you're going through.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacqueline Barron. I'm a senior consultant with Ketchum Change. And Ketchum Change is a specialty group within Ketchum. We focus on employee engagement, internal communications, and change management work, which sounds like a lot, but it's really very interesting. I come from the PR side of Ketchum. I started off working in public relations for over 4 or 5 years, and decided to get a little bit more specialized in the kind of work that I wanted to do, and went back to school and got my graduate degree in industrial and organizational psychology. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk to fellow graduate students, share my experience of what I went through in my career path, and I'm really happy to be working now at Ketchum Change as a consultant working with our clients there.
So that's a little bit about who we are. I'm going to keep us to this timeline that Dan and Darwin shared, which is to have us talk till about 1:15, and then have some really, I hope, lively and engaging Q&A, and then we are going to stay for some networking. They were kind enough to share a series of questions with us. We've taken the liberty of putting them into 3 general buckets as follows. Ketchum and the industry, then talking about our individual roles and what we do in those different roles, and then talking about job skills and career opportunities. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
Cool. So first of all, just a little bit about Ketchum and the industry. You know, we were talking in the car on the way up here. The industry still uses the term public relations in PR a lot, and it's not that we don't use it at Ketchum, but a term that we're using more and more is communications, because of what we do, and we're hoping you get a feel for that even with the panel here today. We're kind of our own little IMC group right here. But there's so much that goes on in a global public relations firm that it really spans beyond strict PR into communications. Everything from digital to change management, research. Maura is heavily involved in an integrated marketing team. We get involved in primarily earned and owned media versus paid. But again, yes, we use the term PR, but we use communications probably just as much. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there a little bit about what is going on in the industry. One of the questions that was asked here is a little bit of background about Ketchum and some of the clients we work with, and some of that's indicated on this handout. We tend to work for Fortune 500 companies. We do a lot of work in consumer packaged goods, a lot of work in corporate communications, healthcare, technology. Those would be some of the big buckets. Our Chicago office here, our largest client is ConAgra Foods, and they have a large division. Their headquarters is in Omaha, as you may know. But they have a large division here in Naperville, and that's the division that we work with. Kimberly-Clark in the personal care division is a large client of the agencies. We work for Grant Thornton over on the corporate side. We work for a number of hospitals doing this is all in the Chicago office. We're in the Aon Center. But as Jack is working on a major assignment for Johnson Controls, obviously based here in the Midwest. So we have lots of different clients, but they tend to be in the Fortune 500 if you had to kind of put them in a bucket. In terms of the culture, I'm going to speak to that for a minute and then I'm open up to my colleagues. Ketchum is the third in my career, the third global PR firm that I've worked for, and as I mentioned, I've worked for some small. The culture at Ketchum is very collaborative. Maybe to a fault sometimes. We love to love ourselves, we love to love our ideas, but we are very collaborative as a group. So I would say that that's a big part of the Ketchum culture, and it's very much a team, because it's so collaborative, it is very much of a team culture. Compared to some other work environments I've been in, I haven't found it to be the ego kind of culture that maybe I've experienced elsewhere, but I'd love to hear from my colleagues. Maura?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The culture at Ketchum is a big part of the reason that I'm still there today. I started as an intern at Ketchum, and then I left and went and worked at a boutique agency, and I was still working on a pretty large account. But what really separated the waking up and going to work and really enjoying the people that you're working with was a huge part of it for me. And I think also it's just very collaborative. I think nothing of walking into like a VP's office, and I felt that way. I feel that way now, but I felt that way as an intern too. I think it's kind of like a doors always open policy, and it's really impacted my career and the opportunities for growth in that sense too, to be able to learn from people and have that kind of access to people. So yeah, that's why I love working at Ketchum.
Yeah, our office, I think in particular, people are pretty much back and nice. You get a bunch of, I think often with communications, not always, but you have a bunch of people who are generally pretty young. I think the kind of mean office age is probably upper 20s, lower 30s. People who like to have good social people like to kind of hang out. We are pretty lucky to have
very social.
Yeah, we have a pretty laid back office. Actually, it's really nice in our office because we wear jeans every day. So that's what I think is a bit of an indicator of how we are. So it's a laid back place where people are nice. Again, I can send my my boss's boss, on email and be pretty colloquial, and it's not considered. There are strict rules of who people are. You can't speak to people at a certain level. It's a nice, collaborative, and just very casual atmosphere. But also when people, we work really hard too. I think that's worth also noting.
Yeah. And I feel like the other thing that I really appreciate is that we are a global agency and that we can pull from global perspectives. I work with people in our London office and in our Munich office, and being able to not just collaborate with people here in Chicago, but across borders is amazing. And there really is that opportunity to go to different offices. I went to the San Francisco office, the LA office, the New York office. It's pretty amazing that we have that ability and agility within Ketchum to work across the globe.
We are part of Omnicom. Does anybody know what that is? We're part of a holding company. We're one of the, there's 3 big holding companies that tend to own most of the larger agencies, be they in advertising or marketing or PR or digital. And we are part of Omnicom, which is also global, which gives us an awful lot of resources. You may have heard of ad agencies like DDB. They have a large office here in Chicago, BBDO. Those are sister companies. Part of my role as I'm cultivating leads and relationships is somebody at DDB could hire Ketchum Change, for example. And so I do a lot of internal selling, if you will, to sister companies and Omnicom firms. And speaking of sister companies, and I know this sounds very layered, and it is to a certain extent because it's a global holding company, but Ketchum is really kicking off the year growing by acquisition. We've just acquired a firm in North Carolina called Capstrat. It's about 150 employees. And yes, they do public relations, but they also do digital. They also do some advertising. They do public affairs. So you can see why the term communications is cropping up a lot, because companies we're acquiring are not just in that PR bucket. I don't mean to say that we're acquiring and things are going great in all of Ketchum. This recession's been hard. The change management practice is the Disneyland part of my work experience. They are exploding, and I think part of that is because the market is really asking for our services. We also have some great people who do great work, but the market is really exploding for our services. But in the traditional PR areas, it's been challenging. It's been a scramble for dollars. One of our largest clients in all of Ketchum is Best Buy, so that relationship is ending, not because of bad work, but because they are not in a good position right now. We had a situation like that a year or so ago at Kodak. So again, while new business is so important, is we're always looking for major opportunities. So this has been a challenging market. We're fortunate that Ketchum is extremely well managed, and so we're able to grow by acquisition, and there are more acquisitions planned for this year. Another question that was asked was, how is the work similar or different between public relations or communications and advertising? And I think I'm gonna turn to you for that.
Okay. Well, I think it's definitely important to note, like when I was in college, I always thought that PR was just media relations. And I ended up doing, one of my specialties is media relations, but I think something I learned pretty quickly when I came to Ketchum is that it's really just one piece of the pie. I have a large role on the day-to-day account side of the Cottonelle business, and I work as part of an integrated marketing team, and I do have to collaborate with digital agencies and ad agencies, but something that Ketchum brings to the table specifically, I would say, is like our strategic thinking, and we're constantly challenged to bring those creative ideas forth, bring those to the table among all the other agency partners. So while we're not creating or producing the commercials that you see on TV, we definitely have a large role behind the curtain of what the creative thinking is, and how the product, I guess, gets to the shelf, and the messages that are communicated there. It's not just always communicated on TV and in the news or in the newspaper. So that's something I think that's really important for people to understand, and some things to consider as you're trying to decide if you want to move into like an advertising world or a digital world or public relations space. So
you see a lot of overlay too with that. So positions that were traditionally advertising positions, so strategic planners, which is, I think, a job that came up in advertising, is now something we have in our agency as well. So we start to see creative people have a very specific role in the PR agency. My research role, I have a lot of overlay and kind of similar duties as people with our digital partners or advertising partners, and a lot of the same skill set, and a lot of the same, I think I do benefit from having an IMC background, so I kind of know how the different parts of the communications mix work, and really, bring that all together and realizing that one of these big companies, the clients we work with, expect our campaigns to be integrated and expect everyone to be able to talk and get along and kind of understand how each other function. So there really isn't you don't see these sharp delineations between PR and advertising and marketing like you may get used to. There's a lot of overlap.
And I would also say, to add to that, something I should have mentioned, I think that's something that PR tends to drive for brands, is really building that story, putting the story behind what the campaign is. And then within that comes from that story, then are all the messages that you use to speak to the campaign itself.
Patrick, because so much of what you do is measurement-based, maybe you could talk about how communications is measured a bit versus how advertising is measured, because I think that helps distinguish the difference too.
And I think advertising, when we look at measuring programs, advertising has often a very set of measures people will use. So it'll be reach and frequency. Cost per thousand is used a lot. And we sort of see similar things in PR, but what we do is Ketchum as an agency, and really I think where the future of measurement for both PR and the entire communications industry is moving beyond. For PR, you might have worked an internship and pulled together books and clips and said, we had X many impressions. And the same thing for advertising, if you're just looking at reach or total ads, or that's going to be, I think we're moving away from that as what we'll be looking at. In the communications field, our new boss is going to be the CFO and the CEO, not the CMO, or just whoever's in charge of your program or your brand champion. You need to be looking at metrics that really speak to these upper echelons of management, and total impressions or total clips or total reach isn't going to really cut that anymore. You need to start looking at what's the impact on your target audience, and that's where Ketchum's really shifted our focus is, hooray, we got a hit in a magazine, that's fantastic, but what does that actually mean for who we want to reach? Is it hitting the right people? Are they going to actually act on that? Will it change the way they think or behave or their comprehension? And then even beyond that, we want to start looking at what's the impact on business results. And this is where we and advertising and marketing and direct mail and every other portion of the marketing mix is going to start to really focus and show results. So we need to work together, and the best way to do that generally is market mix modeling. So if any of you guys are stats nerds, that's a good way to go. But you're going to start seeing the same metrics being used to measure the efficacy of different parts of the communications mix. And I think again, this is where PR and advertising, anything in communication starts to overlap again and starts to see the same needs.
I think we're going to move now to our individual roles and responsibilities. And one of the questions was, Jack, I'm going to start with you. What is your day-to-day job like? A little bit about working in the area that you work in, the personality fit that would be good in that role, maybe some of the skills.
So I am a senior consultant, and usually how I'm set up in my client role is I am the project manager for whatever assignment we're given. And for me, that means that I am accountable to the client. I have to manage and delegate a team under me to get the project done. And then I also have to manage and report into senior people above me. So I'm kind of like this middleman. And I think it's a great position to be in because you really get full ownership of the project. You have to own every piece of what's going on. And it really helps advance those management skills I think when you're starting off in a company, you're just trying to get a good grounding on like getting a project and understanding how to do a report or analysis or media pitch, whatever, very tactical things. And when you step into a more middle management kind of role, that's less of your day-to-day work and more you're focused on, okay, what's the strategy of my client? What are their objectives? Is our team executing against those objectives and always thinking about what lays ahead and trying to be 2 steps ahead of the client as well, because the client is very much wanting to hear our recommendations and something that we can share that we feel very strongly about, because clients nowadays, from my personal experience, they're strapped in resources, they're strapped in their role, and being able to be flexible and knowledgeable of all pieces of the business is just not a reality for them anymore. And so they look to us to be really strong counselors to them. Personality-wise, I think the people that work for Ketchum Change have a great desire to understand human behavior, because we're working with employees. And so we want to know and understand how to effectively engage with employees and get them either rallied around a business strategy or understanding why we acquired a new piece of business, or we brought in new leadership at a company, and who are these leaders and why are they going to change the direction of the company. So it's not just telling employees the story, but really getting in under the skin and like understanding emotionally, what drives them, what's their motivation, and how can we make a difference in our communications that really is going to set that apart. Did I cover everything?
I think so.
Okay.
Patrick?
My day, any given day of mine can be a mystery, so I can show up and not know what I'm doing, and then receive an email that someone needs something, and suddenly my day is set aside, or the next 3 days potentially. One of the interesting parts of my role in the company is a lot of my clients, in the sense of who do I work for, are the account team. So, and the way a big company like Ketchum is set up often is you're going to have a different, each different group will be its own sort of profit and loss center. So we're all working towards our own goals. And so in the case of research, for instance, Maura might come to me and need some research assistance, and suddenly in that case, Maura is functioning as my client. So I'm working for her as well as the greater client, in this case, maybe Continental. So it's kind of an interesting role that I have. My colleagues are also my direct clients in this case, and often with Maura and occasionally with Jacqueline as well. The work we do in Ketchum Research, and the research we just see as a group is very, very broad. It covers the entire research spectrum. So I imagine you'll at some point take a research methods class. Lots and lots of qualitative work, secondary research. We could be doing media analysis, social media analysis, looking at target audience, analyzing a target audience. Primary work, lots of surveys. Do focus groups, online focus groups, bulletin board focus groups. And then a lot of it's just synthesizing information and taking a lot of information and then making it, all right, here's one page of what you need to know. So there's a lot of information in the world, and I think you can go online, you can find tons and tons and tons of stuff. You can get so much from social media. You can get so much from media coverage using, we have Factiva, I don't know if you guys have Nexus, you have access to, or one of those, I assume. There's just so much information, so one of the big things that I have to do is just be able to distill information and really understand what's important for different people and different audiences. So within Ketchum, for instance, when I talk about my clients, on the brand side, people often want just a little bit of information. They don't want to see 20 pages of facts and stats and numbers. They need to know what's going to be important to these people. What target audience are they going to care about? And what do they think about as a program? And I think it helps me. I have a PR background as well. I have an undergraduate degree in PR, and understanding what's important for PR kind of helps me. I have some clients who they just love information, they love stats, and they love data. They want every single thing out there. And if I gave them 500 pages worth of research, that wouldn't be enough because I'd be missing something. And that one little thing that I missed is what's important for them to know. And they'll let you know that sometimes if you don't give that to them. I think from my perspective, what's important for people who I work with, and when I'm looking to resumes or talking to people, really it's curiosity and wanting to learn about a lot of new things all the time, and just having basic logic, knowing what's important and kind of how to analyze stuff and how to think about things. That's really what we do. We deal with numbers, but we're not math people any more than probably most people are in communications. It's just we have to not be afraid of them. But really for us, it is just critical thinking and the ability to switch gears and understand what people want. And I think also in PR and what we do everywhere, empathy and just be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and really think how someone else thinks and how does that person think and how can I work with that knowledge. That's it.
And then my role as a senior account executive on the brand side of things, I have a pretty, my role is always client facing at this point, once you get to this point in your career at Ketchum. And a lot of times, there's a lot of pressure in that position because I also have, part of my role has a line of sight into the day-to-day, or a large part of my role is the day-to-day execution of the programming that's going on, of the things that are in market at that time. But then a small part of my role also has a line of sight into the planning side of things. So, I'm working on a current program right now, and for Kimberly-Clark, we call our campaigns programs. So you'll hear me say that that's just another word for campaign. And there's a lot of reason behind that we don't need to get into. But but what I do, so it can be really challenging. I have to be really focused on, the current thing that I'm working on, the program that's executing at that point in time. And then I have to be able to easily switch gears within the same account and then focus on things that are going to happen in 2014 and 2015. And I have a team for Cottonelle, for example. I work on a team right now with probably about there are 4 of us that work on the day-to-day account execution, and then there's a higher level strategy and planning team who really kind of do their own things. They develop the programs, then the strategy. They pull us in, and then we kind of take the ball and run with it and launch the program and get all the buzz and kick it into market and everything like that. What I would say is that, because it is a client-facing role, if I could come into work with a to-do list, and if I get an email that, they have a question or they have a need, you kind of just drop everything and focus on what they want. Somebody once said, be prepared for your 9 to 5 day and then your 5 to 9 day. The 5 to 9 day is when you usually get your to-do list done, and then the 9 to 5 is when you're doing all the other things that come up that you just don't expect. It's not always like that, but it definitely is something that it's a reality of the job and of being an account person. The other thing I wanted to mention about my role, I think it works so closely with what Patrick does. The research aspect of it comes in hugely in our planning process, and then it kind of comes full circle when it's because our job is so results driven that they just play such a huge role in merchandising the work that we've done and telling our client what that means. So we work pretty closely together. And like he said, I'm his client, so that's nice. I get to tell him what to do.
True.
I'll just quickly tell you what a day in the life of somebody who does business development for professional services is like. And I'll just kind of tell you about today. And I think you're hearing a theme here where there are things that we have to do, but it can be somewhat unpredictable, and new business is very much like that. You can get an email that there's an RFP, request for proposal, or a bid opportunity, or something you can follow up on right that minute. So it's a very fluid, dynamic environment. But for example, today, in addition to this, which we've really been looking forward to, and I would call this market-facing activity, where you're really out in the market talking to people, cultivating relationships on behalf of the firm. It doesn't mean that I'm going to sell you something. This is a non-linear function most of the time, but being out cultivating relationships, representing the firm and the specialty businesses with whom I work is a key part of my role. But it's also part of helping colleagues who are writing proposals and fulfilling bid opportunities. I'm helping them find a case study that they need to put into a deck. I'm reviewing a deck and offering consultation. What do I think? Do I think this will break through to the prospect? Do I think that this is simple enough? Directing graphic designers on the look and feel of that. In the research world, my research colleagues, it's been really fun because I really don't really get what they do. I kind of do. I've been working with that group for about a year, but because I went to journalism school, they asked me many times, can you just review this from a wordsmithing standpoint, from a writing standpoint, and because it has all this research methodology, but is this really understandable to somebody who might not have this level of understanding, and they're not necessarily writers. So then I put my editing hat on, and I do some editing, which I really enjoy a lot. Also today, just as another example, in the research group, we had what we call a webinar, and it was about the importance of measuring and proving everything. And this is something we've been working on for a couple of months. We had a panel discussion led by David Rockland, who runs our research group. He happens to run the change management group as well. He's my boss. And he led a panel discussion. We had a client from FedEx, large Ketchum client, talking about how they measure their communications. We had Booz Allen Hamilton, who's a partner with us, on the phone with us, one of their clients from the Veterans Hospital Group out of DC, and then a gentleman in our firm who is our digital and social media measurement expert, having this conversation. And part of my role was to get a lot of people to sign up for a free webinar during a very busy workday. So that webinar is happening like now. So I'm hoping these people all dialed in, but we did have some really good registration. So getting the word out on something like that, and then trying to cultivate those into more extended conversations that could potentially turn into a business opportunity. So it's taking the thought leadership of the group and trying to turn that into business results for our own group. So those would be examples of some of the things that I do in the day. And I'm part of a global new business network at Ketchum, so there's lots of folks like us in all different parts of the agency. Didn't think when I went to journalism school I would be selling something, but really like it very much, and the sales and marketing role does exist within an agency organization. So I just wanted to put that out there as a potential thought starter for somebody if that's something that you're interested in. I'm going to go back to some of your direct questions here. What is the coolest, most integrative campaign you have ever worked on? And Jack, you have a PR background in addition to, and you're working on integrated campaigns now, so what is the coolest?
Well, I feel like I have to share the one that I just recently worked on because it was pretty outstanding. We worked with Kellogg's, and they were a sponsor for the U.S. Olympic team at the Olympic Games. And that was an integrated marketing campaign that we worked on with Ketchum Sports Entertainment, which is another specialty group within Ketchum. And we do have a representative from that team in our Chicago office. And Ketchum Change, focused on the internal communication and employee engagement piece of that program to really help Kellogg employees, U.S. employees, understand why Kellogg's would be part of this sponsorship and how they could really get involved in it and spread the word about it to their friends and family members. And that was all in large part because cereal sales in the past couple of years have not been that great. The recession, again, is hitting companies hard, and Kellogg's was definitely one of those that fell victim. And there was that need to make sure that Kellogg's was the number one breakfast provider. When you think of cereal, you want to grab Kellogg's cornflakes. And so this campaign, we not only wanted to help raise the visibility of the product, but also to help employees be a driving force and ambassadors of the brand itself. And so we really made sure, and this was over a year-long program when I was working on it, and really made sure that employees were understanding every step of the way what they were doing around the campaign. They sponsored a few different U.S. athletes, like Summer Sanders, Rebecca Stoney, and we brought those athletes to Kellogg's locations and had them speak to employees about what it meant for them to be a sponsor, to be working with Kellogg's, and their start story of this is how I got my start, and this is what I'm going to be doing now at the games. And that was really, I was there for some of those meet and greet opportunities, and to see the employees get so excited, they would bring in pictures or different certificates of their sons and daughters who were athletes, and they're like, oh, my daughter's a swimmer, can you please sign this? And we had posters out there for them. We made sure that they were able to take pictures with the athletes. And it was such a great moment in time for employees to really see how that campaign was brought to life and bringing it to them personally so that they felt like they were actually a part of it. And we carried out different moments in time. We had a big 100-day countdown to the Olympic Games where we bridged in every Kellogg's location via video conference, and at headquarters, the senior leaders presented the entire campaign to all of the employees to make sure that they understood that they were an important, integral part of the company's success and of the campaign. And then that we passed out Olympic t-shirts to all of the employees, which was a huge undertaking. Trying to figure out over 10,000 employees' shirt sizes is like crazy. Like, it was, and I had to work on that. Like, that was the hardest thing ever. But the payoff was going to headquarters and seeing all of these employees wearing the t-shirts. Like, yay, the Olympics! We're so excited. And then to be watching the games on TV, and we're like typing up communications, trying to report out about it, making sure that it's updated on their company intranet site. It was amazing to see how it all came together and how employees really rallied together around the spirit of the Olympic Games. So it was a very feel-good event, and I would say it was really cool to work on.
You don't have anything cool? we work together, so maybe I can speak for us. But
I had a kind of cool one I did recently. Also on the Olympics, it's the exact opposite side of what Jacqueline did. One of our clients was a sponsor and had some sort of negative media coverage going on in the UK around the Olympics. And so one of the things we do for them is track their reputation globally. We do a survey, do analysis of kind of what drives reputation. So you've seen media coverage about this company. How does that impact how you feel about them? Have you read about them in the paper? You talked to a friend about them, you've seen their ads, are you aware of these specific issues? And when it came to the Olympics, they were pretty concerned because there was some pretty negative stuff about them. And we were actually tracking that very closely and looking at how influentials is kind of a broad definition for a target audience of people who can be thought leaders in communities, serve on boards, talk to other people and kind of tell them what to think, if you will, or sort of help shape the conversation at least. And we're tracking this company and how news of this issue and awareness of this issue impacted reputation. And one of the things we found and we could prove through numbers was that the more people knew about this, actually the more they liked the company, the better they rated the company. So if you knew a little bit and just heard kind of the negative part, you didn't really know what to think, and you tended to think badly about them. But the more you knew and the more you were aware of the whole issue, then you actually felt better. So it's kind of fun being on strategy calls with the clients and some of their strategists about what to do and how to create messaging and sort of, should we educate people more about this, or should we kind of just ignore it and let it go its own way? And that was kind of fun for me. I like doing I really get excited about the nerdery and the numbers and using SPSS. I always like to do it when I get a chance to. When you have your SPSS classes, if you have those, pay attention.
Or you don't go into research.
Or your stats classes and how to read regressions kind of does help. You've already forgotten that?
We're doing it right now.
I've already forgotten that fairly later. I'm like reading through my books and trying to figure it out again.
I would say, well, I work on a toilet paper brand is one of my main things. So it's not always that glamorous. And it can be really awkward and weird to talk to people about. Now it just doesn't matter to me. I'm immune to it. But we have had some pretty cool programs in the past. A few years back, I don't know if any of you guys remember when we did the great debate. So we asked America what the right way to roll is, if you should roll over or under, which is a really important topic, obviously. And so I roll over. That's what the majority of Americans do. So, but we used it was a really, really fun program to work on. We pulled in Tori Spelling and Dean McDermott. So they were like the celebrity couple, and each of them took, I think Tori rolled over and Dean rolled under. Dean probably just did whatever she told him to do, but they were really, really great people. We get some nice opportunities to work with celebrity spokespeople, and sometimes you have really good experiences, and sometimes you can have some not so great ones. And a lot of that process is that you have to message train them. They have to really understand the goals that you're trying to achieve so that they can speak to the program effectively. And they were just so eager to work with us and excited about it. We went and took over this building in Times Square, and we just staged this huge debate. And we pulled in like some of our partners came. So like the media buying team, that agency took over all the billboards in Times Square. So everything was just all Cottonelle. And then we ran like the PR side of things, and then like you guys might remember, there was like some out-of-home advertising that was in major markets. So like at the L, you could go and like vote for how you rolled. You could do it while you were like waiting for the train to come and stuff. So I think this getting to work with like celebrities.
Funny or Die.
Oh yeah, we did a Funny or Die video with Tori and Dean. But so like getting to work with that's a great part of the job. But I think for me, like the most exciting thing is that I can, like when I go to the grocery store, I know like so much and everything that went into getting like toilet paper on the store shelves. It's really strange sometimes, but there's so much that goes into just that one product. So I think it makes it really fun and exciting that like we're working on something that's like out there in the world. And I mean, hey, everybody needs toilet paper, so it's really important. So.
I think we're going to skip in the time remaining to job skills and career opportunities, because I have a feeling that's pretty top of mind here. So some of the questions, and I'm just going to throw them out, and you can answer them as you see fit. But how did you get to the role that you're in now? What's a good and maybe not so good part of your role? But what is the advice for new grads, for grads looking for jobs, and what skill sets do we look for, or should we look for from your various points of view when you or your team are making hires?
I would say, and this isn't maybe the best advice, but when you're looking to, at least get your foot in the door, exploit anything you can. If you know somebody, talk to them. It's not always fair in life, but the reason I got my position at Ketchum is because my professor, when I was in grad school, had worked with my boss at one point, and he kind of, gave me an in. Anything you can do to meet people, talk to people, that's going to take you much farther than just sitting your resume and kind of hoping. Take initiative. Just do whatever you can to meet somebody face to face, or say, here's why I should talk to you. That's really going to be important. And I think, separately from a job skill standpoint, again, just for me, it's being able to think critically and take a lot of information and realize what's important out of that. What I do, I think most people could do, and you just have to want to do it, and you have to really want to. Sometimes like wade through a lot of information, so learn about a lot of different topics, and then I think the third and final thing, and this isn't might be too late for some of you, but don't ignore the business side of how important business is to communications. And I think a lot of people sometimes get into PR or advertising because they think they'll never have to look at finances or never have to think about the real business side of things, and that's not the case. What you'll be dealing with a whole lot of is numbers and staffing numbers and billability, and God knows, like, no one likes doing it, but managing budgets, it's something you're going to have to do, and if you put your head in the ground and you won't ever have to, you do yourself a disservice, but you also find yourself ill prepared when it comes to, your first couple of years in an agency, if we're in a company at all, you may have to deal with that, but if you start moving up, if you start becoming a VP, this is the things you deal with on a day-to-day basis, and managing budgets isn't always fun, and for us, opening job codes isn't always the best part of the day, and POs, but it is something you'll have to at least have a decent grasp of. You don't have to be an expert, but it is something you'll be dealing with a lot of.
I'd have to say that I like to manage budgets. So there are people who like that. And I don't know, maybe because it's like there's $500,000 and I gotta make sure that we're staying on track, but I think there's something that there's a lot of responsibility in that, and I think when you're asked to be responsible in reporting in numbers and budgets, there's some validation in that too. From a networking standpoint, I'll tell 2 stories. The first one is recently we were looking to hire an intern at Ketchum Change. And so I went through that whole process of, we were working with our HR team to start getting our name out there and seeing if we could get candidates' resumes in the door. And I wanted to just share, how people made an impression with me. I found it to be really effective, and it almost surprised me, through LinkedIn. A lot of the candidates that were strong candidates went to the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, and that's where I went to get my graduate degree. And so I had LinkedIn, made connections with pretty much all the professors and staff that I was at the school with. And so now, a couple of years later, after getting my graduate degree there, there's this whole new crew of students, and they went through their professors, and to Patrick's point, kind of not in a way exploited them, but they're like, oh, I see you're linked into this person, can you introduce me to her? And so I had a couple of my former professors sending me LinkedIn notes saying like, oh, hey, I see that you guys are posted this internship, and I have so-and-so as a student here. I think it would be a really great fit if you guys talked. And that was how some of those introductions were made, and I thought that was a great way for me to just get to know someone really quickly. I could see their resume on LinkedIn. It's like you have all of your qualifications right there. It's like, to me, I love LinkedIn, so I found that to be a really effective way. And then my second story is to just talk about how I first got my foot in the door. I started off at Ogilvy Public Relations as an intern there, and the managing director at the time, he was speaking at my university, and so I was part of the committee that was putting together this little mini conference. It was a communications conference, and he was one of the speakers. And so I volunteered to pick him up at the airport and bring him to our university, and I had let him know that I had submitted my resume at Ogilvy because I was looking for an internship there. And so that right there was a way for me to get in the door, get to know our managing director, and then I think a couple weeks later we had a phone conversation because we wanted to do a more formal interview, and I got hired on that summer. So whatever way you can find to get in is the way to go.
I think I'm going to jump in a quick minute from a baby boomer perspective, because I think a lot of the positions, especially with a great degree like the one you're all getting, you're going to be interfacing with baby boomers in the workforce, and there are different generations in the workforce, and some of the things that people are looking for are the same generationally, and some of them are different. So I wrote down a few of mine, being old and crabby. I thought this might help. But I'm always looking for proactive thinking. I don't want people who are order takers. I don't want somebody sitting in my office writing down a to-do list and then running off and doing them. I mean, sometimes that's the reality that we have to deal in, but always looking for people who are intellectually curious and want to be proactive, and they're not order takers. They're taking something that we've talked about and they're already taking it to the next level. Or they might say, I'm not sure how to do that, but can we try to get there? I'm not expecting all the answers, but just somebody who's pushing the envelope a lot of the time. I'm looking for people, I've been in the workforce a long time, I'm looking for people who are giving me energy. I don't want the energy sucked out of me. I want people that are coming in. I want people who are coming in. I have a woman who I work with in research with the growth and marketing team, and she sits in New York. And she's probably been out of school, I think, about 7 years. In every conversation, she gives me energy. So that is a huge, huge thing for me. I'm also looking for people who respect some work-life balance. I mean, I have 2 children. I've worked flexibly. I've worked part-time. I'm looking for people who understand that people have, it isn't just about family. You might have other things out of the office, but I'm looking for well-rounded people. And I think we would all agree with that, and I think Ketchum would agree with that. And then one little one little anecdote recently. This is not somebody related to a Ketchum experience, but when you get to this stage of the workforce, you have some relationships, and the reason you have them is because you've cultivated them for a very long time. So this is kind of your equity stake. These are important relationships to you. It isn't somebody you've just known for a couple of years. And I had a family friend right around the holidays reach out and say, we have this friend of a friend. She's this awesome student in a university. She's looking for a summer internship, and I cannot tell you how much of this I get. We raised our family in Northbrook, and every kid who was a swimmer and a band, everybody is calling and wanting internships, and I'm happy to help as much as I can. And so this isn't even somebody I knew directly. And so I had a conversation with her on the phone. She was okay. I didn't think she was, quite honestly, the rock star she was portrayed to be, but she was fine. But I connected her with somebody who I have known since Missouri. I was a roommate with her in Evanston, where I first started my career. I've kept in touch with her all this time. She owns her own agency. I put her in touch. She got in touch with the intern coordinator. I'm not expecting flowers, but maybe a handwritten thank you note or a really nice email with an article attached to it that might be kind of cool to read. Again, I'm not looking for a band to go off, but I'm kind of looking for a little bit of gratitude there, because we're all really, really busy, and I really want to help people, but it's not like I'm staying in the office late to do that all the time. So I'm just kind of putting that out there from it's of course my mother, but it's kind of like going back to your manners, and a handwritten note still breaks through. I mean, it still breaks through to people, especially people of a certain generation. I can't even read all my email on any given day. So there's my soapbox. Thank you for listening. I saw a hand up in the back. With
No,
some
it would
cheering.
break through because, well, how many of you guys get handwritten notes of any generation? I think that's just such a nice gesture. It says a lot about the time you took to make it personal. I think that's great advice. You almost inspired me to think about writing a blog about, are you an energy giver or an energy taker?
Yeah, on the energy standpoint, coming in with a good attitude is so important. I've interviewed people and they have just kind of blah attitudes. They don't seem excited, and I'm not going to hire you if you don't seem excited to do the job when you're just trying to get it. Then what are you going to be like when you actually have it? And being a person, I'm a pretty sociable person. I'm outgoing. I like people. If I think you come to me and you're just meh, didn't bother to learn a little bit about the company, then I'm going to be. You're not going to probably get it, no matter how good you are. So that's I think that's something that's really important. And once you're working full time and once you're doing it for a few years, again, having a good attitude. It's really going to help so much, because when your attitude kind of get bad and start to get negative, it feeds itself and feeds people around you, so people like you better. You're chipper and smile through it and say yes, and that's good. I think that's some great things.
Well, I'd love to just tell a story real quick about how I got into Ketchum, because I think it's, I would sit in these things in college and,
Because I know the story.
I would sit in these things in college and I'd be like, yeah, it's all about who you know, but I don't know anyone. Like, what am I going to do? And so I think they both covered some really key things about, like, you have to go in, you have to create your own inroads. I went to college in Cleveland and I wanted to move to Chicago, so I think I applied to like every agency for an internship. Wasn't getting calls back. I was writing letters to like people at Fisher Price, like anywhere, like handwritten notes again. And people were giving me really great advice, but nothing was really happening. And then I started to use LinkedIn like as best as I could, and I found someone on LinkedIn who went to my school. And so I had a good resume, I had a lot of experience, so I knew that I was able, and I think you guys would be in a similar position. You seem like you have the credentials and just being in this program alone. So I knew it would be okay if I reached out. And I didn't ask for a job. I sent her a note and I said I was looking, and I said if she had any advice. That's kind of how I would go about it. I never was like, if someone sends me an email and was like, are there openings, can you get me a job? I'm like, you have to get yourself a job ultimately. It doesn't matter who you know. So it turns out the person that I contacted happened to be the director of the brand practice at Ketchum. And I attached my resume, and it was like right when the recession started. And she said, you have good experience. She said, here's the email of our HR director. Feel free to reach out. It's your job to get this as far as I'll take you. So that gave me access. Right there, put me ahead of that pile of 700 or God knows how many resumes they get constantly at Ketchum. And so I knew it really was mine to lose. I got into the interview process, and they told me it came down to me and one other person. So this was when I had graduated from college. I had just finished an internship. I always like to frame it up like I was this really poor and lowly person. I had $50 in my pocket, and I took 40 of it, which isn't really true, but I took some money that I had, and I overnighted a package to Ketchum, and in it I put a sneaker, and I printed out a bunch of the brands that Ketchum worked on, taped it to the bottom, and I put a note in there. I put my resume in a note that said, "I'm ready to hit the ground running at Ketchum." And so Patrick laughs because this person would tell this story constantly.
It's still in the office, the shoes.
The shoe's still in the office. But that person told me when I started there, she said, it was between you and this other candidate, and you broke through. And that's the difference. I mean, it was only an internship that I was going after, but I just did that little extra thing that got me noticed. So I would say, be really creative. If you want to work at a creative place, then you need to be creative in that interview process. So that's my story.
I think we're beyond our time, but we have plenty of time for Q&A. So we've been talking a long time. It doesn't have to be a question, it just be a comment too. Yep.
I'm still not entirely sure what you guys actually do on a campaign versus, because you say that you define the brand identity and you set that up. So how does what you do differ from the actual advertising portion of it?
Yeah, I would say that's a really good question. I think it probably, we definitely start in the initial ideation of a campaign. Basically what happens is the brand will come up with an idea and they'll tell us to put thinking behind it. So each agency walks away and they work within their own channels. So for example, something that we would do for Cottonelle, a couple years ago we were charged with, Cottonelle came to us and they said, we want to put out these roll covers. We want to use toilet paper roll covers to build conversation around Cottonelle toilet paper. I don't know if you guys have seen this. And so, we were roll covers. If anyone even knows what they are, they're sometimes they're knitted covers that sit on the back of your grandma's toilet. They're pretty ugly things. We were how are we going to build buzz for Cottonelle with this? So something that Ketchum brought to the table was that we brought the thinking that said, okay, if this is what we have to work with, then we need to make sure this is on trend. So we need to make it trendy and something that people actually want to have in their bathroom versus some weird little plastic cover that you might really not need. So Ketchum came to the table and said, we need to bring in a celebrity designer. So we did all the research about who the best fit for that to work on the project would be, and it turned out we used Jonathan Adler. And then what happened there was the brand was this is a great idea. Every channel develop your ideas against using Jonathan Adler as the main spokesperson for this campaign. So he was in every aspect. He was in the print advertisement. He was mentioned on packaging. We used him for some. We gave bloggers access to his studio, and they got to come in and do a behind-the-scenes thing at his studio. So. And then to get so that's in the planning part of it, and then when you get into the real tactical execution stages, like I said, the blogger thing would be one example. We'll do a lot of work with online influencers, so mom bloggers. We'll give them access to things touring a studio would be one example. We also, as part of that campaign, we took over the Malibu Beach House, and we put the roll covers in there, and we had a big party, and celebrities came in and got pictures with them, and then we took those, and then this is where media relations plays a role. We took those pictures and we pitched them out to People magazine and Us Weekly and all that kind of thing. So the roll covers were seen as this trendy, chic little thing that you would want to have. Does that explain it?
Yeah. How'd you get those celebrities to come to the beach house?
That's another good question. They were probably really I think we had a baby shower at one point, and I can't remember who it was for. I should know. But so she brought all of her little friends.
It was the celebrity that was the baby shower?
Yeah, it was for her. So then, and that's a lot of times, and I hate to, you guys probably know this, but whenever you see the stars are just like us, they're probably being paid to be like us. They have toilet paper in their hands. But yeah, so usually it's a paid thing.
Yep.
Can you guys talk a little bit about your relationships with the clients and how when a client signs on, you really build the relationship with them and who exactly it is you're interacting with on the client side?
I was going to say, it probably depends on the client and the project. For me, a lot of times I'm working either with a director of corporate communications or a director of internal communications, and they will report directly to the CEO. And so those are the types of clients that we work with. And that relationship, kicking it off, it's really, we like to kick it off in a way where we're in person meeting with them and talking to them and getting to know them on a one-on-one level and understanding what their challenges are in their business environment. And that's not just for externally what the company is facing, but internally from a political issue, who are the people that they have internal, political conflicts with. So we try to help navigate through those waters with them and just get to really understand them through in-person meetings and what we like to say, we'll set up like ground rules of like how to start a project together, and we'll say like there's no surprises. Make sure you tell us if you're not happy. We at Ketchum in total, we have what is called our client end-to-end experience, where all of our client accounts are set up where we're making sure the experience that the client has working with us is at the top-notch level, where we are making sure we're getting their feedback. We'll do a 90-day check-in with them to make sure they're comfortable with the team that they have, and if they're happy with the project manager, we'll make sure that we have our senior leaders doing touch bases with the client to make sure that they can have some one-on-one time with them to talk about things. So that's some of the areas that we do to make sure that the clients feel comfortable with our team.
Yeah, and I think, I guess to add to that, I think that it's important to remember, we were just talking about this, that since we're on the agency side of things, our clients' focus is their products, it's their brands, it's not communication. So we're charged with being the experts in that field, and they'll come to us, with questions. Like I said, I could come into work with like just an email where my client will be like, oh, can you put together a one-pager about and just recap the results of a program, like tell me what it did for us, and tell it to me in like 4 bullet points. So that's one way that we communicate with them. And I think, I sit on a number of calls during the week. For Cottonelle, we have these things called Agency Day, where all the partners will come together for like anywhere from like a 2 to 4 hour long phone call, and we each talk about what's going on in their channels. That's a long one. But that's just like an example. But I think, there's constant communication. And if you're good, I think, if you're good at PR, something that we do on our teams is always making sure that your client understands the value in your work, always making sure that you're communicating everything that you are doing, because we're working so hard, and so it is important to like keep those communication lines open.
I think another thing we were talking about in the car is the client's world has really changed. I would say in the last 5 years, 4 years, with the economy being part of it, and with the explosion of technology and social media that they're having to navigate every day. So they are extremely busy, and they are also living in a world where their budgets are under a high level of scrutiny. You may have a budget and it may go away, or you may think you have this budget and then it may be a lot less in reality than what you thought. From a new business standpoint, you have one, but then what you really have for activation, if you will, is considerably less. That happens all of the time. So the pressures they're under, and then in their world, things are constantly changing. They are living in this environment of just constant change. So helping them navigate that, helping them get stuff done, is a big reason why they do outsource and why they do turn to an agency. So I think sometimes it's challenging when their demands are coming through, but if you take a step back and you put yourself in their world, it's a hard world. It's a hard world for them to be in. And then the reality of the time we're living in is it's their world. It's a buyer's world. There are a lot of firms out there that do what we do on a variety of levels, And there, it's really a buyer's world. So we have to feed into that. So client satisfaction and client service is a huge part of what we're trying to deliver every day. They're also interacting with procurement. Do you know what that is? Do you know what I'm talking about when I say procurement, or a purchasing department in a major company? This has been a huge change in the last few years from a new business standpoint. Is you'll get an RFP, request for proposal, an opportunity to pitch or bid on something, and you can't even talk to the ultimate client. You're talking to procurement. You're talking to a purchasing agent. You're actually putting your bid in through a portal, into this. Sometimes it's like this Ariba portal that has this clock, and it's like a 10-day clock, and it's counting down until it's due. I've like seen that clock in my sleep. But these procurement officers are charged with taking so much money out of the system. So it's their job to negotiate. Their outsourced dollars need to be reduced this year by 25%, 30%. Sometimes it's more. And so that whole environment, I'm not saying it's not fun and there aren't cool things that we're doing, but that's the reality of what these clients' lives are like. So proving value, measuring what we're doing, which is a huge part of what the role Patrick plays, is measuring how any campaign program, an audit Jack might be doing, how that's delivering ultimately business results is something that we have to, as a table stakes activity, more and more. Does that help?
Thank you very much.
Can you, maybe Jacqueline's more for you, but can you talk to a little bit of how you work with your clients to like keep employee morale high, maybe when there's a crisis going on, when things aren't going as well, like some of the things that you found helpful?
Yeah. Well, we love in our group to have some models around that, around effective employee engagement and around crisis. And there's countless ways to take a look at that, and it depends on what the client challenge is and what the crisis situation is. We do a lot of work around mergers and acquisitions, and that a lot of times can be a very sensitive piece of business because there's a lot of confidential information that needs to stay within certain groups, and that can't be shared publicly because of whatever stakeholder groups are invested in the other company that might be being acquired. So there's a lot of stuff that kind of like is happening behind the scenes, and our team will be working on that behind the scenes stuff. Whether it's communications, talking to senior leaders, and getting them ready to be prepared and have a successful launch when it comes time to sharing that publicly with external stakeholder groups. So we'll help them think through that process of how to successfully navigate through it, and also help them understand what the employee mindset is going to be. Because if there's a change going on within a company, the first thing a lot of employees think are, okay, there's going to be layoffs, am I going to lose my position? And that, for anyone, like that is, especially with the recession, like that's a huge thing. And we try to think of all the questions that employees might have, and it will be as simple as putting together a 20-page comprehensive Q&A of trying to think of every little thing that we can share with them. And then we do coaching. We talk to leaders and help them understand how they can sound honest, how they can sound transparent, how the messages that they're saying, have a human feel and element to them, because this isn't just my employee, this is their livelihood that they could potentially be losing. And so we want to make sure that whatever we're positioning internally is really helping employees understand why these changes are happening and why, a lot of times it's like why these tough decisions have to be made. We want to employ everyone here, but at times when the business is just not doing well, that's not a reality. So that's some of the things that we do to help them think through that.
This was one of the problems that have been bothering me when I was working in PR agency before. I know like when you do something day by day that just fall into the daily routine that you're doing, for example, doing a briefing book, executive profiling, doing the media clipping stuff, and how and when do you bring in the creativity? among all this daily routine? Like, how to balance between the things that you have to do and something you want to do differently this time?
Well, I think Ketchum is a great place. I think that creativity is such a huge part of what we do. I mean, NPR is really important, but Ketchum, it's definitely something I think that sets us apart. And I'm not sure if this is really getting to your question, but like something that we get to do pretty often, and I like to do, engage in like creative thinking. So we'll, like pretty much anyone in the agency has an opportunity to come together when we're coming up with programming ideas. So like when we're planning for a program that maybe is going to happen in like 2014, our creative team and the creative network will plan these brainstorms. So people that work on, all different account teams, and maybe they don't even work on Cottonelle, they can come in and we put up a challenge question, and then we all do some creative thinking around what the programming idea should be. Maybe we'll talk about big stunts we can do that might drive buzz around it, or maybe we'll talk about things to drive media attention to it. And sometimes the ask is different. Sometimes it's like, how can we generate online conversation? And so it's really cool to see everybody come together with their different perspectives. Maybe they don't work on Kimberly-Clark brands, but they work on ConAgra brands, and they have this really great experience that they can help us drive some creative thinking into like our brands that we do. I don't know if that helps, but I think also as you rise through the ranks there, when you get into like more into the planning of things, you are challenged to do the creative thinking. And whereas like interns or like entry-level positions might be the ones that are just doing like the execution of that.
The fact is, like, sometimes work just sucks. And you get stuck doing boring, tedious things that can be awful. You can be trying to figure out the size of 10,000 employees, like a t-shirt. Or in my case, it could be like reading and scoring 10,000 tweets for tone and topic. I think the best you can do with this is always try to be creative and try to think of a way to take this a step further. I love it when the people I manage come to me and say, hey, we're doing this way, but here's a way to improve it, or here's another way to think of it, or here's some implications of what this means for the brand or for our client. I'm always trying to think of new ways to do something better or smarter. That's always impressive me when people do that, and it's creativity when it's hard to find creative answers is really impressive. If you're in a brainstorming being creative, awesome. But if you're doing something coding or tedious or boring and you can be creative, that's even more impressive. And that will, it always impresses who you're working with and your leadership, but it's also when you can keep yourself active. I listen to music too when I do that, so music helps me.
Something that Patrick and his group do all the time is we try to base our creativity on insights. We're not just in a room like trying to be creative, like throwing ideas around. Patrick and his group have a number of tools where they'll really dive into a target or to media habits around that target, or look in this myriad databases that we subscribe to and come to a team and say, here is the deep dive, here are some insights on this group, and then they build the creative on top of that. Another way we bring creativity in, I mentioned the collaboration of Ketchum, which is terrific. It's also time-consuming, but I think the creative process, they have a creative community. We have these little communities inside of Ketchum. It's a very matrix organization. And so the creative community that comes together in a number of ways, but one of the things that we have, there's a little icon of it on your handout, it's called Mindfire. And it is an online crowdsourcing tool that we have. And it's a way that we crowdsource, and it's from college students. And we throw out creative challenges and we look for their input. So we're always trying to do things to shake it up a bit. I'm not saying it's perfect, but creativity is pretty integral to, even if we're not working on a brand marketing campaign, our corporate communications, our crisis people, they're trying to be creative. So we try to have that permeate as much as we can.
I think we have time for just one more question. Take your pick.
As you mentioned before, a lot of PR is about storytelling. And do you guys, working on the agency side, find it difficult sometimes to know enough about an organization? I know that Jacqueline mentioned you do sit-downs with your clients beforehand and really try to get involved in that company. But do you feel, especially in crisis communications, that sometimes you don't know enough about the core values of the client you're working for or necessarily that corporate culture to be as effective as if you were working in-house somewhere?
We're expected to know about our clients. Whenever we do part of my role, whenever we pitch a new client or get a new client, I'll sit down and say, here are 5 pages of information. Here's their corporate culture. Here's their earnings. Here's any major news about the company, their CSR efforts, target audience. Like, if people are expected to read through that and understand that, and that's part of my job is to bring it all together in one place. But you can't always know everything. You're not always going to have that. But particularly in agency life, and maybe less so if you're working for the corporate side, but you're going to be expected to know at least a little about a whole lot. For every one of your clients, every product they make, you should have a decent understanding of. And you're expected to keep learning too, so you always need to keep an eye out for news about them or news about their product categories or their competitors. One of our agents or clients' competitors does something big, we need to be familiar with that and know who they are and know what they're doing. I think it's kind of part of the interesting side of what we do because it's constantly learning and constantly keeping up with new topics and new things. Sometimes you're learning about toilet paper though, and it's not always the most engaging topic, but we are expected to understand our clients and to know what's going on. And it can be tough at times, but I think it's a part of our job.
And we also, I would add on, have experts within Ketchum who can help translate for us, such as we have nutritionists on staff who help hand in hand with our food clients and will help us understand how to explain a nutritional label and how we can make something that's really media worthy. And we rely on them to be experts in nutrition and food science so that we look smart in front of our clients. So that's one of the really cool things about Ketchum is we don't just hire communications people, we hire communications people with different expertise levels, and we can bring them in and take on any client challenge.
Great.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up here. Thank you guys so much for coming.